Great. Thank you and welcome to the decision session for the Executive Member for Health, Wellbeing and Adult Social Care. I'm Councillor Jo Coles and I'm the Executive Member for this portfolio. Thank you to Paul, Pauline, Jane for being here, and anyone who happens to be joining us online. I just want to check whether there are any declarations of interest, and there are not from me. And then moving on to item 2, the minutes of the previous meeting. No one has raised any issues with me. Obviously, I wasn't the executive member at that time, but I'm very happy to sign these minutes following this session as an accurate record, bearing in mind that no one's raised anything with me. Moving on to item 3, public participation. Am I right in thinking there are no registered speakers? It's hard to comprehend. No, in which case we will move on to the main item on the agenda, which is the approval of the submission and publication of the accountability statements for York Learning. Paul, can I just ask you to say a few words about the submission?
You can. There you go, come back on again. I must have pressed 2 hand. Thank you for taking the item today. As part of the Skills for Jobs white paper, in terms of how adult learning should be spent, there was a requirement for all providers who receive over £1 million worth of public funding to write and publish an accountability statement that details how our offer aligns with the local skills improvement plan. The local skills improvement plan was written on behalf of local employers by the Western North Yorkshire Chamber of Commerce. That's been submitted to the Department for Education for approval, but not yet finalised. But we have a requirement to publish a final version of our accountability statement by the 31st of July. So the documents that are included within the pack include that accountability statement. In summary of that document, what it does is takes our existing strategy that was approved and taken through public consultation and aligns it with those skills improvement priorities. What it does, though, is looks to cement our position as the gateway to learning for those individuals who find learning a challenge, who haven't engaged, who are quite far removed from the aspirations of employers, in some ways because they don't know what they don't know. So there are lots of opportunities that have never been more vacancies. However, there is a large number of individuals within York and North Yorkshire who are low skills, low qualifications, and are, as a result, are in low paid work, who would benefit from those opportunities if only they knew that learning was the route to that. So what we're doing with our accountability statements is showing how we can align with that agenda. It's fairly clear that the direction of travel from the government is based on progression into employment, but the steps towards that are wider than just getting a qualification. For many people, it's about engagement first. It may be overcoming a number of hurdles that they would need to overcome before they can even think about going into learning in general. So that's what the statement does. Our requirement is to get it approved so that we can get it uploaded to the Department for Education to be part of our funding agreement for next year.
Great, thank you. I had just a couple of questions I wanted to ask you about it. First of all, just on that kind of point of anything you could add just around outreach and how you get people engaged in the learning opportunities that there are and where those learning spaces are across the city. Obviously, we have a priority to try and reduce inequality across the city. And so that first part of the journey feels incredibly important.
Yeah, what we're trying to do, and the strategy clearly does that, is we do need to do more about taking learning to where people are rather than expecting people to come to us. So we're doing work within the curriculum in terms of targeted areas of provision. So almost trialing and testing with particular groups that we may not reach particularly well. So for example, taking 19 to 24-year-old males who are probably the furthest away in terms of engaging. So we're targeting a digital gaming route as an example to try and provide that comfortable space to hook into. So that's an example of how we try and align the curriculum. We're trying to align the message. So using a variety of imagery within marketing, taking the approach we've done using multiply money in terms of engagement for a reason. So cost of living as an example. And then we're looking to utilize the maximum number of spaces that we can use. So we use library spaces throughout the city, the explore library spaces as much as possible. We use a couple of school venues so that we get access to better ranges of equipment, but also we then deliver in community type venues as well, so to community centres and that type of thing.
So you've got a full range.
We've got a full range. We are limited by the opportunities that range provides. So for us to address some of the green skill retrofit, those type of things, we need a different space. We also need a variety of spaces dependent upon people's barriers are to education. So some people may be terrified of going into libraries, so we need to provide an alternative to that. Some people may be terrified of a school space because they've had a negative experience, so we need to provide an alternative to that. But equally, we need to provide those opportunities for somebody who might live at one part of the city, yet our current venue is the other side of the city. So we're looking to balance all of that as much as possible, as well as also addressing the digital access needs of people, because we can deliver an awful lot to anybody anywhere online if you've got the capability to get online, either through having the right equipment or through having the right skills to be able to switch the machine on and go to the appropriate session.
Yeah.
So we're trying to address all of those things.
And would you mind just touching on digital skills more generally? So obviously there's digital skills to access programs of learning, but just generally digital skills and just in specifically regarding pathways and how what employers are looking for and how we're trying to match up digital skills with that.
Yeah. I mean, digital is such a broad concept, you know, and digital poverty is a particular challenge. So we're part of the digital partnership, trying to address those access related issues, but we're also involved in those first step opportunities where people can come to us to learn how to switch a machine on, to learn then how to attach an email. So those basics that, you know, understanding how to fill a web form in that is so fundamental to modern society, not being able to do that means that you might not be able to get the best deal on your car insurance, or you might not be able to access particular funding or, you know, apply for benefits. All of that type of thing we're trying to tackle as much as possible through that engagement opportunity. You take the employer need, and employers define we've got digital poverty in a very different way, but in some cases it's about current workforces, you know, so we're doing as much as we can to overcome those fears within funding constraints, because the things that we can fund are different to what they used to be even 12 months ago. So there's some qualifications that have been taken away, replaced with things that don't really meet the needs. So we're trying to use our funding envelope to sort of access that. But equally, the far end of things like artificial intelligence, VR, augmented reality, drone technology, all of those things that are terrifying enough to somebody who is able to navigate a computer, never mind somebody who thinks that the machines are taking over the world. Removing that fear opportunity is something that we're doing. So we'll be using some funding through something called the Learning Skills Improvement Fund that follows on from the Learning Skills Improvement Plan to target some of that fear. So we will be buying things like drones and taking them out to open days in the community and saying, you know, this drone, that's just the same as the remote control you used to drive when you were 6 or 7. So you can do it and you can use it. Don't be terrified. So a lot of what we're doing is around that removal of fear and that barrier about digital being something terrifying that somebody else does, because we've got to try and find ways to engage it.
Fantastic. And just finally, can you just say a little bit more about the kind of, you know, the pathways that people are following, or the progressions that they would that we're kind of aiming for people in terms of, you know, we know that barriers to entry are an issue, but equally we want to make sure that once people come through the door that we've got pathways flexible pathways, I guess, open to them to see them through.
Yeah, what we're doing a great big piece on at the moment with all learning is the great reveal of the wider transferable skills that people have got. So through any learning opportunity, you're actually gaining the skills that employers are saying they wanted to. But at the point of gaining those, you might think you're not needing to look for another job. But equally, unless you can effectively self-assess and look at the job market, you don't know that the job you actually love actually exists. So we're opening eyes through all of our curriculum to that through wider and transferable skills. Through our partnership with North Yorkshire, we're creating formal pathway documents. We're using a 6-step to engagement model that will start with very basic gateway courses that are linked to what people are interested in rather than the end point. But through that work on transferable skills and providing information and advice and guidance throughout the programme, there are pathway documents then that say, you know, going through this particular patch of courses, which in most cases will come through English, maths and digital, because that tends to be the biggest barrier for most people. But from the outside of that, we'll then articulate particular pathways into particular careers. And some of the work that the LSIF fund will do will have us articulating specific courses with FE and HE colleges at that.
Sorry, you're going to have to tell me what LSIF is.
So LSIF is the Learning Skills Improvement Fund that follows the Learning Skills Improvement Plan. So the money that the Chamber had for shaping the plan, York College are leading a partnership of providers using the Learning Skills Improvement Fund to help the plan happen. So that's 2.1 million across York and North Yorkshire. And we are one of a partnership of 11 providers that are in there, but we really take the partnership down to 10 because it's a joint bid between ourselves and North Yorkshire. Great.
Anyone wanting to add anything else? Pauline, do you want to say anything?
No, I don't.
In which case, I thank you for bringing this to me, and thank you to all those who are working across the city to either refer learners into pathways. So whether that's, I don't know, social workers or local area coordinators, people who are working in neighbourhoods who just are aware that these opportunities are available. So thank you to them, as well as everyone who's delivering all that learning in the libraries, in the schools, in community centres and settings across the city. It's, you know, really important, and we will continue to try and improve the offer that we've got for people across the city so that we can reduce inequalities. I am therefore happy to approve this submission. So thank you for that. Is there any other, I don't think there is any other urgent business, in which case I'm happy to close.